18 to 24-year-olds are lacking friends, intimate partners. They're feeling increasingly alienated from society. Addressing it doesn't mean that you turn your back on issues pertaining to women, but it does mean that we should be focused on what it is in society that is leading to this epidemic, what the left can do to offer solutions, and how we can basically fight back against the more nefarious figures who have filled the void that men are struggling with, people like Jordan Peterson and what have you.
What I've been telling young men is that there's an actual reason why they need to grow up, which is that they have something to offer, that people have within them this capacity to set the world straight, and that's necessary to manifest in the world. And that also doing so is where you find the meaning that sustains you in life.
So what's gone wrong then?
Oh God, all sorts of things have gone wrong.
I think a lot of it comes down to something leftists tend to be more comfortable talking about, which is toxic masculinity,
You're only alienating men further when you reduce this issue to toxic masculinity. Vaush does acknowledge this terminology isn't ideal.
Male loneliness is often an emergent property of toxic masculinity, which is, by the way, nobody likes this term, right? The right gets really upset when you say toxic masculinity because it sounds like you're upset with masculinity in general, and it's a really vague term. So let's just say, I think a lot of guys can be kind of antisocial because they're taught that sort of independence is a masculine virtue.
I would argue the exact opposite, that teaching men to get out of the way and make themselves smaller is what often leads to men not feeling comfortable enough to develop their social skills in the first place. Not that teaching independence is a problem. This segment is mostly about how the left can reach out to lonely men.
Addressing it isn't, in my opinion, a right-wing perspective or a right-wing task.
I agree. So then why did you spend the last several years ignoring the issue and mocking Jordan Peterson?
It's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category.
Maybe stop acting like an incredible turd online all the time by trolling swimsuit models and calling them fat.
Ah yes, now this is truly progressive. This isn't about whether or not you like Jordan Peterson's Twitter activity, and they don't do a much better job when they actually address the issue at hand.
I know you're not on top of the world. I know there's tons and tons of guys in America and all across the world who don't have a date, they feel lonely, they're not rich, and they feel like they're marginalized. So if you want to reach out to those people in a healthy, productive way, that's great, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to reach out to them and say, now let's all hate women together, no, that doesn't help at all.
One of Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life: hate all women. Jordan Peterson isn't perfect, but he was a very effective motivational speaker. To dismiss and vilify him would be throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Two of the largest breakout conservative figures in the past 5 years, respectively, Jordan Peterson and Andrew, both became powerful in exactly the same way. That is to say, they postured as like self-help gurus.
Jordan Peterson and the Drewster did not rise to fame in the same exact way. Jordan Peterson has a PhD in clinical psychology. Andrew is a former kickboxer who brands himself as a misogynist. While they both make motivational content and have predominantly male audiences, that's pretty much where the similarities start and end. You could pretty easily make the argument that Mr. Drew has postured himself in some sort of way. Jordan Peterson, on the other hand, is a clinical psychologist who studied philosophy. Given his background and worldview, it makes perfect sense that he would eventually become a motivational speaker.
You got a lot of backlash for talking about this. And you might tweet about it, but where I've heard you actually talk about this issue at length is on your streams. And I think you're thoughtful in the way you talk about this issue, but you still get hit with, oh, you're just a secret right winger from your critics, right?
It's been known to happen. I know.
What's behind that?
I would say the media trying to persecute anybody who even utters the phrase men's rights is what's behind this. Anna Kasparian tries to blame this on internet culture, but let's be real. The Young Turks have had years to try to cover men's issues in a more positive way. I guess better late than never, but it just comes off as a grift.
Just having the conversation might get a lot of folks invested, or they might understand that the left is interested in these issues beyond a sort of like token, like surface level political skim where they're trying to get people off the top.
Right, exactly. This means that pundits like Vaush have essentially written themselves into a corner. The left isn't willing to trust you if you bring up men's issues because they've been taught for the last several years that if you bring that up, you're automatically a right-winger. And the people who already feel spoken for on the right are going to see this as a grift. Networks like the Young Turks need to realize that regarding alienated men, they have years of groundwork to catch up on. This is an issue they will have to take seriously for a while before anybody takes them seriously.
He continues to argue that leftists and progressives have absolutely no idea how unnecessarily repellent they come off to so many people, and they get angry at the idea of being a more effective social movement because they don't want to share their social spaces with people who might have gone another way.
First of all, run-on sentence. Second of all, I completely agree. That's why I'm so grateful for creators like Destiny and Shoe on Head. What makes this tweet about coming off as repellent even more ironic is the tweet that precedes it.
He writes, I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't.
Is anything close to fascism even allowed on Twitch? They updated their policies on hate in the December of 2020. Prejudice is one of the main things they address in this policy rollout. While a few people might slip through the cracks on Twitch, I have a hard time believing that it's 10 million young men being pulled into fascism. Perhaps we shouldn't confuse fascism with trolling, just how many people have confused men's issues with the far right. Using this hyperbolic language makes Vaush seem like an alarmist, thus making him more repellent.
You want to reach out to people where they are. And to start that process, with a lot of young guys, I think it would help if lefties were willing to acknowledge this sort of natural conclusion of toxic masculinity as like a mode of social analysis, which is if men are socialized in certain ways and treated in certain ways socially, it necessarily follows they must have specific problems. And if those problems are the product of social systems that are out of their control, I don't know why we wouldn't apply the same basic sociological lens of analysis to that as we would with literally anything else.
The last thing men need to be told right now is that their problems are out of their control and they're not responsible for them. They need to be told that not only will effort get you to where you want to be, but you will often find purpose in that effort alone. I wish I knew just how many people stopped trying because they were told, well, it's not your fault, it's society's fault. Regardless of who's at fault, taking responsibility is taking control. If you want more control in your life, don't attribute your problems to society. And that doesn't just go for men, that goes for everybody. You can't really expect to convince your oppressor to be less oppressive. The best thing to try to do is to find independence through diligence. For everyone, that's going to mean something a bit different. And if you're looking for some sense of direction or motivation on YouTube, I highly suggest Ryan Holiday of The Daily Stoic and Earl Nightingale.
The next vital rule to successful living is to understand that our success is won or lost by our ability to serve others. We are interdependent, and it's just as impossible to succeed without serving others as it would be to live in our modern world without others serving us.
All right, that's going to have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
I'm not sure that the people on the board of supervisors know what they're doing. I don't think they're qualified for this.